Now, today, for a bit of some unconventional news and unconventional topic for you. Do you guys remember just a few weeks ago when Kanye West um, was at some sort of event that he held for his, supposed presidential bid in South Carolina, and he just kind of was ranting and saying all sorts of stuff, and began saying, he should give mothers $50,000 a year, and you should give, or then he went to 1 million, right? I mean, it wasn't such a bad bid. He kind of started like a little bit reasonable and then went overboard. But the thing about it is, like, the media just kind of like shut it down completely. It was all crazy, it was all terrible. And they only showed clips of the part where he kind of, you know, he overdid it, right? But some of it was okay, some of it was useful. I watched the whole thing, and so I was able to have a more well-rounded view of it. But that's not the point. My point is, why did they do that? I really think it was because he tended to take sort of like a pro-life and anti-abortion slant to his speech, and the liberal media, the mainstream media, didn't like that, and so they just shut down the whole thing. They made it seem as if he had nothing useful to offer whatsoever. But it wasn't so bad. I mean, he was making some good points, and I found it to be a little bit kind of informative about what was in his heart, and I mean, he tends to be a little bit like intense, but sometimes it's fun to listen to somebody that isn't like, sanctioned by, that isn't sanctioned by any sort of entity that wants to see them behave this way or say that. And it's just talking about themselves and their family from their heart. Sometimes it's interesting to listen to that, even if it's somebody that's a little like intense at times. I don't know. Sometimes it's like there's some nuggets that one can pick up from that. In any case, so that was my experience in watching that. I guess it just made me really think about the issue of abortion, and how I consider myself to be a cautious pro-choicer, not a pro-choicer like let's just make. I think that's because I think about the long-term repercussions and the long-term effect of where things are going in this country. And I think that a lot of things that start out as a choice can easily become, take a totalitarian turn and become something that's forced upon you. A good example of that might be when I was in a graduate program in law school not too long ago, around 2008, 2009. I remember back then was the issue in California of whether or not to legalize, marriage, the whole marriage equality thing where you can marry whoever you want, whether they're this gender or that or whatever, right? I remember that whole issue, and I remember the people. My school, my law school at the time, is a conservative school, right? So our professors and everybody on that side, they pretty much came out on the side of this is going to get carried away. It's never going to be just like, oh, we want this just so that, like, some people can have this right or whatever, or just, these are people in this predicament, and they just really want to have their right. That it's never going to be that. It's going to become something that's marketed to everybody all the time. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, that's so paranoid. That's an exaggeration. But now, the complaints that are coming out of some Californians is that, like, they're now making them teach it in schools and things like that, which is so funny because that was the argument raised by the conservative side back in 08, 09. And I remember rolling my eyes and thinking, well, that's a bit like what I thought it was like a little bit paranoid that no one's going to go that far as to push that on you. It's just that, like, so a few people who want to do their thing can do that. I thought that's what I thought at the time. But looking back on it now, I definitely do think that it did become something that was, pushed more. And it wasn't just that, like, just leave somebody alone to do it. But no, it's like became something that was marketed. I say this on the issue of that, on the issue of, marriage and whatever. That's not such a big deal. I mean, whatever. Go see your therapist, go see your pastor, pray, or don't, whatever. Or be happy and don't even worry about it. That's not so important. What's more important is when we start taking attitudes like that towards something so important where life and death is involved. So what I foresee in the future is a time when a woman is like talking to her friends on the phone about being pregnant and like, oh, what should I do? I'm so excited, but I love her. We're getting married. Oh, we are married, or whatever. That one of the options that it's going to come up as soon as they turn on Google is the option to abort that child. Now, that's not me being paranoid. I'm pretty sure that's actually what's going to end up happening. that the things that we fight for, it's all about power, you know? It's not really about, you know, your right to do this, your right to, that's why like all this like, you know, freedom to do this and that. The most important freedom is actually probably economic freedom, because that is really what liberates you. All these other freedoms of choice can really be turned on you very easily. So for example, the very same people now, I'm not saying they're not all going to be millionaires and billionaires someday, but I suspect that the same people that are crying for more and more liberal abortion laws now are going to be the ones who are going to get hurt when it switches to a thing where you can't even announce on the phone or on the email to your friend without it just switching to just suggesting abortion to you right away, because that happens with you know, because that's just the direction that things are going. That happens with dating. I mean, you know, it doesn't just, now it just assumes like, even if you've only ever had like, you know, marriages and dating with the opposite sex, it still assumes the other anyway. It'll just suggest that to you anyway, which is pretty, to me, a little annoying, but that's just what it is. And that's fine. I mean, whatever. That's like, that's not, again, like I said, that's not that big a deal. But when it comes to issues of life and death, that's incredibly dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous. So I would just encourage everybody to really think more cautiously and realize that, you know, when it comes to just giving the choice, people the choice to do whatever they want, issues of life and choice, even sorry, issues of life and death are so different. They're so important. They're so important that your choice can easily be turned against you to become something that is forced upon you. Your choice where you think you're just saying, oh, I just want it to be like a few people who really need to do this, to be able to just do their thing and have an abortion. After all, I don't want 17-year-olds who don't want a baby to be having a baby. After all, I get that. But if you make abortion laws too liberal, then what's going to happen is, like I said, you're not even going to pick up the phone and announce to your friend without your internet, you know, your Google ads suggesting to you abortion clinics right away. It'll just become like just another option. Now, I don't want to go to the extreme, but if the world ever becomes like, you know, really, really, you know, despotic and totalitarian-ish, then it'll become something that's forced upon you. And then we're going to see, which is, of course, what I've heard conservatives say before, oh, you will see the days of forced abortions in this country. Of course, that's the extreme. That is possible, I have to say. That is possible. But if things really do take that turn, you can see that. The things that you fought for become the things that are really pushed upon you, where you thought you were just saying, oh, well, you know, you can do that if you need to do that, but I don't want to do that. You know, that never works. Eventually, it just becomes like, yeah, it's legal now. Go ahead and do it. Do it already. Get an abortion already. Eventually, things like that can take that kind of turn. Unfortunately, I know it sucks, but that's just, you have to look at it as sort of like a psycho, like political way of looking at the way things turn out over the long term. That's all I'm saying. Hey, you know, definitely still support people, somebody who feels like they can't afford to deal with having a kid, especially someone who's like, you know, young, not ready for it. I get it. And I definitely still say, hey, you know, I can be a very cautious pro-choicer in that realm. But I definitely don't support us being very liberal by anything that involves life and death. I just don't. I don't support us being very liberal with assisted suicide. If anybody remembers the Terri Schiavo case from a really long time ago, you know, where she was a vegetable and they were fighting over whether or not to pull the plug or not, even though at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, in this case, it's probably fine to just let her go. But again, I'm very cautious when it comes to that, because soon assisted suicide may not be your choice. It may become a forced suicide. It may be like, yeah, it's legal now. Just like, you know, go watch this video and feel bad about your life and go away already. You know, those are things that can happen. So yeah, anything that involves life and death, abortion, whatever, please don't get too liberal with it. That's all. That's my soapbox. God bless you. Love you.